You know, we're in the post-OBJ visit now, and it seems very anticlimactic. Are you hearing anything about that? Is he going to be able to play?
I don't get the sense he's going to be able to play. I mean, I think the fact that he's not working out for teams, this whole thing has kind of felt like a little bit of a leverage play to, land a contract. He was expecting last season, he was expecting the Rams to basically give him something similar to the deal that Michael Gallup got with the Cowboys. They didn't come to the table with that. He was upset. I think what's interesting is when you go back to the season opener and you look at the video of him with the Rams, the trophy, sort of the banner drop and, all that stuff at SoFi, I had somebody from the league who was like, hey, look at this piece of video. And he looked like he was stiff, like he was walking like he was stiff. And I thought it was nothing. I didn't think it was a big deal. And this guy was a league source, and he just said, look, I'm telling you, I think he's far away from playing. And he predicted then that this would happen. And, hearing what Jerry said, I just have to believe that most teams are looking at him, excuse me, right now, as a 2023 edition and not a 2022 edition.
So the Cowboys and Micah Parsons said today that OBJ told him 5 weeks, so maybe he could play in the playoffs. But even that, in your opinion, seems like it's probably less than likely. It'd be 2023, which would mean probably the Cowboys are out on this.
Yeah, I mean, where's the clearance? Remember this whole, he's cleared. He's cleared. We're reporters out here saying, and I'm not going to name him, but he's going to be cleared, or now he's been cleared. By who?
Sure.
Who cleared him? What teams cleared him? So, to me, it just felt like everyone's been so far ahead of themselves in this whole thing. Because remember, when the season started, it was, hey, it's the target is a thing, mid-November return, right? That's what it was. Then it was post-Thanksgiving. Then it was, it's going to be early December. And it never felt like, it felt like all the information's coming from inside his camp. What are they going to be? They're going to be overly optimistic, right? And it was, what I thought was really interesting was the closer we got to this, the more it was, he doesn't want to just sign through the end of this campaign. He wants a full overall deal. He wants a deal that extends, multiple years. He's looking for basically a big free agency contract. And I thought, okay, if you're protecting yourself based on what happened last year with the Rams, I suppose I get it. But as we got here, and I think Mike Florio said this several times, I think he's right. I think it was a leverage play. I think he was trying to leverage the idea that, hey, I can come in and I can be the cherry on top. Look what I did with the Rams in the postseason. I can be that for you. And yet there was no, here's the medical, here's my workout, let me show you how healthy I am. Why would you sign him? Seriously, why would you go through this if the guy was not going to prove to you how physically capable he is, to play football right now? It's just absurd.
Yeah, I would be interested if it was for a low guarantee with incentives, but I get the feeling Odell Beckham Jr. would have no interest in taking that and proving it.
He's not doing a through the end of this season deal. He's not. He's just not. He wants. I think he wanted to do the free agency tour. He wanted Buffalo to wine him and dine him. He wanted New York to wine him and dine him. He wants Dallas to wine and dine him, thinking, all three of these teams could potentially use me. I think I can get on the field by, January, and factor into the playoffs. It's just nothing about, to me, the big red flag, the second I heard, hey, he's not, teams can't work him out, I was like, yeah, no way. There's no way. He's not sniffing anywhere near the kind of deal I think he wants and not working out for teams. He's out of his mind.
Charles, I'm going to switch the subject because I think this thing is dead like you're talking about anyway. So how you handicapping now the NFC after we get the calendar changes to December? Did the Cowboys legitimately have a chance in this? Are you expecting have a good season, then all of a sudden the playoffs come and they fall apart?
They shouldn't. No, look, here's what I like about Dallas now that I think is different. Let's see what Tyron Smith looks like. Okay, let's see if he can enter back into the fold. That's going to make the entire line is going to get better. It's just the experience level of having a rookie contribute the way that he did, and then be able to move him. There's some depth there, and then I think the fact that they figured out how to use the two running backs, the two running backs to me are the fundamental change in this team, because it's. As long as everybody's healthy by the time they get to the postseason, offensively, you can dictate tempo, you can create mismatch problems with multiple players, and defensively, it's also not a defense that's just predicated on turnovers. It's not hey, if we can turn them over, 2 or 3 times, we're going to win this game. No, they create chaos constantly up front, and so there's a different dimension to the defense. Now, again, Diggs is going to give up the occasional big play downfield. Things like that are going to happen. But I just think offensively, the team looks different now that they can run the ball, that they can sort of play different kinds of tempo with those running backs. They can get them on the field at the same time. It's tougher for defenses to prepare for them. The offensive line looks like it's going to be really good heading into the postseason. It doesn't feel like, hey, this is all on Dak, or hey, it's all on getting 3 interceptions in a game to win a playoff game anymore. I predict that when they play Philly, it's going to be a hell of a game, and everybody should be looking at Philly and Dallas as the favorite. As much as I appreciate Kyle Shanahan, I appreciate the San Francisco defense and all the skill position players around Brock Purdy. It's hard for me to believe that guy is going to be able to, when the pressure really gets ratcheted up and we're, in the playoffs, that guy's going to be able to play mistake-free football, which is really what you're going to have to do. And I don't think you can do that against Philadelphia or Dallas.
Does Dallas win this division or Philadelphia?
Well, let's see. Let's see. The head-to-head, I think, is really. I think the head-to-head is going to dictate it. Ultimately, when we get to the end and we look back and we go, okay, what was the turning point for one team or the other? They gotta be able to beat Philly, and I think they got a chance. I don't think there's any question that they have a really good chance. And I think if they beat Philly, they win the division. So I feel a lot different about this team than I did last year. There was, as much as I liked it last year, as much as I liked what DQ was doing, on the defensive end of it, I love this team because of the fact that they kept the coordinators, because Mike McCarthy has been through there's no brand of nonsense he hasn't seen since he's gotten here in terms of the questions and is your job on the line and injuries. And he just, to me, he's seen it all now. There's nothing that really, I think, can shake him. He's been through the, misusing timeouts, not using not managing the clock correctly. And then I just think, functionally from a talent depth standpoint and then even a schematic standpoint, it's just a better team. And they lost last year, which there's some people in there that should have a burr in their saddle over what happened last year. And I think you're going to see that as you get closer to the playoffs.
Has McCarthy completely saved his job to this point?
I hesitate only because it is a conversation that changes dramatically if you get to the postseason and you lose. Like if you lose your first game, like if you go in and you flop, that's a real conversation that you have to have. Great. Hey, you can coach in the regular season. You can keep the team together, the coordinators, it's been sort of, for most of the season, kind of a kumbaya environment. I mean, compared to a lot of other seasons. But if you can't put together a game plan that can win in the playoffs, if you can't succeed in the playoffs, the team is built, to win again. And I thought last year after the disassembly sort of, when they lost in the postseason, I was like, oh my God, the offseason is coming. They're going to lose pieces. I don't know how they're going to maintain this. And not only did they maintain it, they got better. And I think usage of, again, the running backs got better. The offensive line is going to be better. And so it's actually a better team than it was last year. Well, we all saw how upset Jerry was. We understood that disappointment, right? I think it's you can double down on that if it happens again.
It's Yahoo NFL insider Charles Robinson with us here in the GBag Nation. And you mentioned Tyron Smith. You mentioned the running game. Without getting too far ahead, do you anticipate Tyron Smith and Ezekiel Elliott both returning next year?
Man, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I'd have to I got to look at their cap situation. I don't have it right in front of me. I mean, it's not a real cap. You can move money around, but I just, let's see how it finishes out. I think if this team goes to the Super Bowl, I think you do everything you can to try and keep I don't look at Tyron Smith in spite of the injury, and again, let's see what he looks like when he gets back in there. I don't know that he's done. There have been a couple of times where I've been like, he's washed. There's like, the back injury, or he's in and out of the lineup, and like, how long can you keep moving this forward? But I just think it all depends on how this role goes in the playoffs. If they lose early in the playoffs, I think there's probably going to be some tough decisions that are made salary-wise to give them some flexibility down the line. And the first place you're going to go is Zeke's salary. You're going to look at Tyron, and you're going to say, okay, well, we drafted a kid who, plugged in at that position and looked pretty darn good. Looks like he's ahead of schedule in terms of, sliding to that spot someday. But I think if this is a run, I think they set up a run, they go to the Super Bowl, I think you probably do what you can to keep as much talent, inside as possible.
That would be glorious, Charles. Last year was a disappointment. San Francisco was peaking at the perfect time, and it ended. What's a bigger playoff threat going in? If you look at the Eagles and the Cowboys as the top three or the top two, would you rather face Tom Brady with an average roster or the Niners with Mr. Irrelevant?
Oh, Brady, 100%. I mean, it's not look, with all due respect to, what he just did. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. They had no business winning that game whatsoever. However, if you looked across the ball, the stupid mistakes that were made to open the door, I mean, it was unbelievable. But when you watch Tampa, I think a couple of things that would concern me right now is offensive line's still bad. It's probably a little bit better than it was before, especially since, you've found, Fournette and White, in the backfield together. I mean, there's some balance there that you can have as you press forward. But, like Mike Evans, good example. I don't know what's going on with Brady and Mike Evans. I don't know. I mean, I saw where Mike Evans says, hey, I'm not getting the separation, I need, and that's why we don't have this connection. But it's like he's force-feeding, things right now to a rookie tight end. And then Godwin is starting to click. But beyond that, I look at that offense and I'm like, okay, he really needs Evans to play at a Pro Bowl level. That connection is just not. Evans was nowhere until the fourth quarter of that game. Now he showed up when he had to, when they went up tempo. Maybe the offense changes a little bit more now that, there's some discussion there about, okay, we're going to be willing to go more up tempo than maybe we were in the past. But it feels like that roster just has, the holes now that it didn't have before. When that roster was at its best, you say whatever you want about Antonio Brown, but when he and Gronk were on the field with Godwin and Evans, it was a very, very difficult. You had four guys who could win one-on-one matchups at any given time. They don't now. They've basically got one guy in Godwin who can do that. So I'd be more worried about San Francisco just because the defense is, again, health permitting, going to be dominant. It's going to be a dominant unit. They can run the ball. They have a lot of positional flexibility on offense because of the things that Debo can do, because of what CMC can do. Kittle, Ayuk, they're getting contributions all over the place. And the one thing I'll say about Purdy, rookie, but in a weird way, I think it's good. It's okay with Kyle because he will do what Kyle tells him to do. Kyle's going to say, here's what the game plan is. Don't screw it up. Don't try to do anything special. I'm going to design easy completions for you. We're going to lean on the defense. We're going to run the hell out of the ball, and we're going to win some games, in the postseason. with this formula. Just don't turn it over. So he's going to try and make it as simple for that kid as possible. And, I think Kyle's a really good coach who occasionally gets in his own way. But, that's still a good team, even with Garoppolo going down.
Hey, how much do you trust Philadelphia then, Charles? Do you trust Philadelphia as a team that can win this all?
I do. The one thing, I do still question, let's see over a long enough, timeline, whether or not they can figure out how to stop the run, especially against teams that I think the Cowboys present problems for them because you have two running backs who can play different styles, can hurt you in different ways. One of them's a really good pass blocker. And, they picked up all these pieces to try and stop the run, which is great, but we have to see that consistency develop. And I don't know that we're quite there yet. I think, the thing about Philadelphia, when A.J. Brown's going, he just got a GM fired. That's crazy. To get your former GM fired, lighten him up. If he's dominant, when he has big games, you go and you look at that offense, they're absolutely unbelievable because it gets to the point in those games where Jalen Hurts calls his own number a lot, but in those games where he's putting up big numbers with A.J. Brown, it's just, they're almost unstoppable in those moments. And it makes things, easier for obviously Devonta Smith. They're going to get Dallas Goedert back. I do think if he's not back in, this, in week 15, I think it's going to be week 16. So they're going to get a tight end back on the field who's very, very good. And, but I don't think they're flawless. I really don't. I still believe, people might not want to hear this, I still believe the biggest weakness there is forcing Hurts to stay in the pocket, to continually throw it down the field from the pocket. And I still don't think he looks great, but he also looks great on plays where, he's the off schedule stuff because of his athleticism. If you keep him inside the tackles and force him just to stay there and throw constantly down the field, I think it changes sort of how that offense looks at times. And defensively, I don't think they're as good as Dallas. I really don't. I don't think they're anywhere near Dallas's level.
Charles Robinson with us on 105.3 The Fan. You talked about McCarthy and the playoff success that oftentimes also correlates with the quarterback and Dak Prescott. There is an out in Dak's deal for 2024. If the Cowboys don't have that playoff success with Dak, do you see them utilizing that out in 2024?
It depends, what do we, let's see what Dak looks like, the closer you get. Unless your quarterback is really not functional, for what they're paying him, just wait. This is going to get, Herbert's deal, Joe Burrow's deal. There are going to be other deals, and pretty soon the $50 million quarterback is going to be like, oh yeah, the elite guys, the top level guys, they're all in the 50s. And then eventually we're going to start talking about, well, who's the one that's going to hit 60 APY? It's coming. It's absolutely coming. And, it's just, who knows how economical that deal, Russell Wilson's deal for Denver hasn't even kicked in yet. That extension hasn't even kicked in.
Jeez.
And, he's going to be a mid-50s APY guy. And that's just, I know it's bonkers considering how he's playing right now, but that's the deal they gave him. Who knows what Lamar Jackson's deal is going to be? He's going to play on the tag. They're going to tag him. But all it takes is him putting up one big season, really putting it together. So he didn't do it this year. If he does it next year, he's going to be a $50 million quarterback. It's just the state of the league. You have to make a decision when you have a quarterback like this now. Either we're going to pay it, or we're going to figure out a way to either trade him, let him go, and drive all those resources into everything else. It's weird because I do think we're headed toward some kind of reckoning in the next couple of years where there's no middle class at quarterbacks. You're going to have some guys making huge money, and then, maybe the top 10 guys, and then you're going to have sort of this abyss in the middle where teams are trying to figure out, what are we doing here? Do we want to find a guy we can pay $25-30 million? Like Jared Goff's a good example of Detroit. They don't draft a quarterback. They're sitting there staring at Goff's number, which is low 30s, and they're going, not bad. Now with where things are going, he's a middle-of-the-road quarterback, but this is kind of middle-of-the-road quarterback money. Geno Smith's going to make $30 million next year if they do a deal with him. So, I don't know. Let's wait and ultimately see what it looks like and what Dak looks like. It's I wouldn't put all the success or failure, just on Dak, especially when we've yet to see how this offseason, or excuse me, this postseason is going to unfold.
Charles, you are amazing. Simply put, thanks for all the thoughtful insights here.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.